Hi, so this speech is about how the Civil War changed the way that Americans viewed death, and from this we conclude that the Civil War also changed the way that Americans think about the paranormal, with spirits in particular. And so the entirety of the United States went through huge changes after the Civil War, as most people know. One of these big changes was the way that people viewed death. So many people died away from home, the way that they viewed death shifted. And so, with the shift, people thought about the way they thought about the paranormal changed as well. People who are interested in the paranormal will enjoy this speech as I try to persuade you all that the Civil War is the reason why people think about spirits in the way they do these days. And so, like I said before, the Civil War changed the way that Americans view death. And from this, we conclude that the Civil War also changed the way Americans think about paranormal. And so, I'm going to be talking about a couple of main points. First off, how, like I've been saying, how the Civil War did change the way people view death. And then I'll be talking about seances and that increase in spirituality, and then the spirituality we see today. And so, before the Civil War, most people generally died in or around the home. The death count of the Revolutionary War wasn't super huge, neither was the War of 1812s. Um, but so people were able to mourn their loved ones in a way where they were able to, lay them to rest, view the body, everything they needed to. Nearly 750,000 people died during the Civil War, which is 2.4% of the population. And those numbers are from The Republic of Suffering by Drew Giplin Faust. And in this, he also states that due to the way that the war was fought and the amount of people that died, people just couldn't mourn in the way they were used to. Bodies weren't returned to families. People were missing. They didn't know if their family member was dead or alive or, a prisoner of war, where they were. And so then after the war, federal cemeteries for Union soldiers were established. But still, these people were buried away from homes, and sometimes their families weren't even aware that, someone was buried there because a lot of the times they couldn't even identify who had died. And so this, people were obviously dealing with the huge stress of losing a loved one, also the stress of not knowing if a loved one was alive, not being able to hold services and lay them to rest in the way that they need to and wanted to. And due to these things, many people turned to spirituality. Their original religions weren't helping them as much as they needed. And so more and more Americans did turn to spirituality after the loss of their loved ones. They increasingly wanted to communicate with the dead in particular. And so, toward the end of the Civil War, seances were becoming more popular. They had been used for years. They weren't a new thing, but not as many people did them. And one person in particular who brought seances to a huge light and popularized them was actually Mary Todd Lincoln, First Lady and wife of Abraham Lincoln. And so after she lost her son, she was wrought with grief, and then obviously after she lost Abe, it was awful for her, and so she started having seances conducted in the White House. Even Abraham Lincoln, attended some, and WhiteHouseHistory.org also notes that even after Lincoln's death, there was still an increase of spirituality in the White House. So Mary Todd kind of brought it in, Mary Todd Lincoln kind of brought it in, and then people kept it up. And there were people claiming that they had seen Lincoln's ghost in the White House, and people wanting to connect with that. And actually, according to WhiteHouseHistory.org, again, Lincoln's ghost gave the nation hope because if his spirit was able to return home, then the families or the spirit of their lost family members could also return home. And so the Civil War it's a cause of the progression of spirituality in the United States. People, if that war hadn't started, people wouldn't have turned to spirituality on the scale that they did. According to David K. Nartonis, by 1897, more than 8 million people in the United States and Europe were practicing spirituality. And that's not organized religion in that way. Saying spirituality in this way is trying to communicate with spirits and ghosts and everything like that. And so this increase is due to the Civil War, due to this mass death and needing to deal with it. And then, of course, an increase in spirituality like that also leads to an increase of interest, especially skeptics. And so more skeptics were coming out and more people wanting to just investigate in spirits and everything in general, and investigate in the paranormal to come to their own conclusion. And so we still see the effects of the spirituality movement today. Even though we're over 150 years removed from the Civil War, this movement that happened after the war can be seen today. There's medium TV shows, like if we see Long Island mediums, people you can go to a seance today. People even travel to Civil War sites to look for spirits. And if the Civil War had not changed the way people viewed death, there most likely wouldn't have been such a big surge in spirituality. And so this increase in spirituality after the Civil War helps support my claim that the Civil War changed the way Americans viewed death. And then from this we can conclude that the Civil War also changed the way Americans think about the paranormal. Thank you.